Hello everybody, I'm Antonia and this is Noel and we are from Boxtail Soup Theatre Company and we are here in our studio again. We've been making puppets this week, we're starting on the puppets, and also Noel has made a set model which we've been playing around with as well. So this vlog is kind of going to be in two halves. The first half we're going to be talking about the puppets and the second half we're going to be talking about the set. So if you're not so much interested in the puppets you can skip to the second half, and vice versa. If you're interested in the puppets but not the set you can stop after the first half. I've been clinging on to my cup of tea because it's actually a bit chilly in here this morning, but this week I've actually got tea in my cup now, so that's nice. We have been making the puppets in, relatively speaking, the usual way, I suppose. Got some pizza boxes out.
Yeah. I mean, we had a few debates in the beginning about whether the puppets, as we said in previous couple of vlogs that we've done about this, the making of this show so far, we had a couple of debates about whether the puppets were going to be kind of as human looking, because we had talked about them possibly being made from pieces of their surroundings or something like that. And we went through a few different ideas.
Oh yeah, because you showed the picture in the last vlog, didn't you, of the train driver who was
which was the one sketch that we had for the train driver.
Yeah, which you'd drawn up based on it being made out of an old ticket machine, a hat and not whistle, but something else.
Yeah, so there was this sense that perhaps, maybe as the story progressed, or maybe from the beginning we weren't really sure, but that as part of Dunning the central character's isolation, because he's being haunted, you'd get this sense that the other characters were kind of disconnected from him. They were nothing more than the kind of product of their environment. So yeah, the train driver would be made from his little ticket machine. Mrs. Johnson, the librarian, might be made from the books or come out
However,
of the books.
we dismissed that idea because in fact we realised that it didn't serve the story well enough, and ultimately that's the most important thing. There are quite long scenes with Dunning and his assistant, Gayton. Yep. And if you've not got a puppet, you need a puppet therefore that can emote well, and therefore we wanted to go as human as possible while still giving them a sense that they belong to this particular show rather than any other show.
Yeah, so that idea had made the puppets something other.
Exactly.
Made them kind of otherworldly, whereas actually the story itself in the beginning is quite rooted in reality.
Yeah, it is.
So it's important that the puppets have that sense of a connection. They feel like they're actually characters in the world. So we decided, yes, they needed to be much more human faces, but we wanted to make them just have a slightly different edge because it's a slightly spooky story. So
yeah, they're sculpted in a slightly different way. I mean, I think to anyone who's seen the shows before, if you've seen A Christmas Carol, they're the most similar to those puppets. But we've just gone a little bit different with the way that the faces are sculpted. So the first one we started off with was Mrs. Johnson, who's this lady here, who is a librarian in the story. And I think we've got some photographs of the frame, which I built first, which was made out of the pizza box like this one here. And then obviously got covered over with papier-mâché in the same normal way that we do. And then finally added the eyes and this pair of glasses, which I'm really pleased with actually.
Yeah, the glasses are great. I think her expression is great. She looks like she'd tell you to shush.
Yeah, I think she does.
In the library.
And obviously she needs some hair now because they always look slightly strange when they're at this point where, because I have to build the head up slightly more than you might normally just to make sure that there's enough room to put a good hairstyle on. So she's ready for hair. We'll show a close up. You can see a proper video of her later on. Then we've also got the pick him up. Just grab him. The train driver. He's train conductor. He's a very incidental character, actually, isn't he? I mean, at the moment, I think he only appears once. He might appear twice, in fact, in the newer version of the show. He's going to have a train conductor's hat on. So again, he needed to have enough forehead here to sit the hat on top so that it wouldn't fall off.
He's got a great nose. The shape of the nose is great. And it's actually possibly a little bit more human or a little bit more natural than some of the other puppets we've made. Because again, we didn't want to go too far down the caricature road. We wanted them to feel a little more a little more
rooted in reality,
yeah.
I suppose, but also slightly less friendly.
Exactly,
If you
yes,
compare them
that's a
with the
really good
Christmas
point.
Carol puppets, the Christmas Carol puppets have their mouths, this part of their mouth is sat in front of the face here, and therefore it gives them a more upturned, slightly smiley face, whereas these, we wanted it to be set a little bit more like a person's lips would be set one on top of the other, but that gives them this more, just slightly more severe. I mean, he doesn't look that severe, but
No, but it's edging in that
Subtle
direction because it's
differences.
appropriate for the story, and also his eyes are a little smaller as well than we might normally have gone. He's a little.
they're lidded at the top and the bottom, which we don't always do. Again, hers are the same. With some of the Christmas Carol puppets, they've got more open face, so they've got lids at the top, but then they're open at the bottom, which just gives them this lovely wide-eyed look. Whereas we wanted to shrink them down a bit, and then obviously hair. I'm going to give him a beard. I think it was your idea, and I like it. I sketched it onto the drawing, and I like him with a beard. And then you got on with this one, who's obviously needs covering now. He was tricky.
Yeah, so this character, Gayton, is... there are two characters in the story, really, who actually are a little bit closer to Dunning, the main character. Gayton needed to be just a little bit friendlier, a little bit more open, have quite a sweet face, and yet be in keeping with the other puppets.
Exactly.
As well.
He's a really lovely personality, but so we wanted to make sure that we got him right. I think at the first iteration, you'd made him quite a lot bigger at the top. He was just bigger. He was more the same sort of size as the train conductor, but we decided that just wasn't quite right for that character, so you shrunk him down. I mean, the great thing about working with the pizza box, as you said,
well, we're so much more familiar with it now. We're so much more confident in building the shapes and building the frames that it means that it's much quicker to alter as well. Because, as I did when you said that it was too tall, I didn't hesitate at all to just snip the top of it off, knowing that I can pin it in, I can bend the card around, I can reshape it, I can add extra little bits. So I think our own confidence in making the frames is, a big part of being able to be more specific and be a little clearer about the detail that we want to put into them.
So if you wanted to have a go yourself at this, then it's just strips of thin card, and we tend to build off the mouth first. So we make this section here first, where the fingers and the thumb go, and then build up and off around that. It's important not to attach the lower jaw to the upper. You want to make sure that you're not, that what's moving is the right part, if you see what I mean. Yeah, you don't want the lower jaw to be attached just to, like the lower face to be attached to the lower jaw, that's what I mean. Because then the whole of that lower face would move down.
Yes, yeah, sure. You don't want it to split all the way across here.
So the
like
lower,
some kind of
unless you're making
face.
a monster, the lower face needs to be attached to the upper jaw. But yeah, it's quite straightforward, really, and it's you can just have a play with strips of card, and very flexible to change.
Yeah, there is a tutorial somewhere. Right?
There is a tutorial.
It's from a little while back, but the puppet in that tutorial, in fact, ended up being Jacob Marley in Christmas Carol.
Did he? Oh, yeah. There you go. So that's really where we're at with the puppets. I'm going to cover this one later. Meanwhile, Noel is going to make a frame for Carswell, which is going to be tricky, I think, and probably going to need a lot of...
Yeah, I mean, again, he's another
tweaking.
one who's you've got to get it just right, because he's the antagonist, he's the mysterious villain of the piece, so he has to have that presence, that threatening, that presence and
yes, exactly.
Charles Dance flavour, as we said. That's what I'm gonna have a picture of Charles Dance pinned up.
So that's the job for the rest of the day, and I'm going to start on the hair probably for these guys as well. And then, so moving on to the set, Noel made you saw the design that we had last week. I think we showed you the one with the colour added in. Noel then went on to make a set model out of Pizza Box card again, just so that we could play around with it. We've got a little sort of stage set up in the corner over there that's to scale with the venue that we're going to be at in Edinburgh.
Yeah, so I basically measured out, like you say, exactly to scale the space of the stage. So I've got that drawn out, and then all of the little bits of card, all the little the props and things, certainly in terms of height, are made to scale.
Yes, not width.
Yeah, you can't, because the card is, it's so fiddly to make the detail in.
Well, width for the main bits. I think you've made the door.
The doors are the right
middle,
width, but the lamp posts would obviously be about a foot wide if they were
to
made
scale.
to scale.
Yeah.
As Adele here.
But then to cut them really thin like that was sort of...
Yeah.
it was enough for us to be able to play around with it. So we can show you some photographs that we've taken of just some suggestions of permutations of how we could move the pieces that we've designed around to make certain locations or moments of the show.
We started doing it with Great Grim Tales, didn't we? That was
did.
The first one where we really made a properly
Workable,
detailed set model that was to scale and as per what we were then going to build. And it is, as the sets have become slightly more complicated and slightly more involved, it is really, really helpful, isn't it? It's just really helpful to be able to see it in 3 dimensions. It's really helpful to be able to move things around and just solve a few of the problems that you might have had before you actually get to making it, because you realise, oh, actually, it would be useful if this folded in half here, or if this was able to be used as part of this picture. So it informs then how you'll go and make
it. Definitely ends up, although it takes some time to make it, it saves much more time than when you're actually making the real thing. It helps us to decide how we want things potentially to fold, as you say, what pieces we might want to pop off. The next, though, slightly tricky thing, as always, will be working out how we pack it flat as well.
Yeah.
Which is one of those things that we always slightly lament, because it would just be so much easier if we could just make solid objects. Yeah. However, I do think...
It's always 2 competing things then, because you've got these ideas for bits of the set that you think, oh, it would be great if it could do this, or if it could fold like this, or if this thing came out of it. But then you have to be able to break it down. You have to be able to take it apart and pack it into a small case or a small trunk or whatever it might be to transport it. And those 2 things aren't always entirely compatible.
I think what we're going to try and do, though, where possible, is use where we need to split it for packing to our advantage, and use those points where we might say, well, if we've got to split this thing in half, then how could we also potentially use those 2 pieces separately, or have it fold or whatever for the actual during the show as well. So where possible, we'll try and make that an asset rather than an annoyance.
One of my biggest criticisms of the set that we made before was that, partly because of that, and because of it was our lack of experience as well. You know, certainly we weren't as adventurous or as confident in terms of what we were making. So the door that we had previously for the show was made out of an old wallpaper pasting table. It's quite a clever idea, because it did actually fold in half and had a little handle and was ready to go. But it meant that it was very narrow, and it also looked very flimsy. And really, you want that sense of
stature,
foreboding, you want it to feel like a solid door at the back.
The one thing, though, I did say to Noel is, at least for this show, he's making a rectangular door, not like A Christmas Carol when he was trying to work out all the angles for this shape. Yeah, so at least we've got that as a bonus this time. So that's where we're at. Today is going to be spent on puppets, and then we'll move on. Well, Noel will certainly move on to making more set, probably a couple of prototype things first. We've got a couple of ideas that we need to try out in Pizza Box first. Meanwhile, I'll try and finish off all of these heads and make the hair and the hats and all that sort of thing. So we're getting on well so far, I think. But I think that's all we've got to show you today. So as always, if you are enjoying the vlogs, please do give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, ask any questions you would like, subscribe to the channel. Welcome to new subscribers. And also don't forget
that Casting the Runes in Edinburgh is going to be at the Pleasance above, Pleasance Courtyard. Tickets are on sale now. They've started to move. People have started to buy them. So thank you if you bought your tickets already. If you haven't and you are coming along, why not buy your tickets early? It lets us relax a little bit.
It makes us feel so nice when we see the numbers just go up on the sales report. We're like, oh, it's great.
And of course, you can also go and listen to the Casting the Runes audio drama, which we did a while back, if you want to get an idea, feel for the story.
See you next time.